Come in. All right, Windows Forms. Just a real quick overview of what we were kind of looking at last time. Whenever we're looking at Windows Forms, we're talking about a graphical user interface, or a GUI. And that's where that term GUI came from, pretty much. It's from Windows and the ability to create applications that had nice graphical interfaces. Whenever we use a Windows form, we saw last time that we have to include the system.windows.forms namespace. That gives us all of the classes that we're used to using or that we can use on the form. Whenever we're creating our form, you guys saw there's drag and drop construction. That's a great thing about the form designer. Our control classes like labels and text boxes and buttons and things, we saw last time, those are just like other classes. So they have properties and methods associated with them that we can use in our code so we can make things work the way we want. When we're looking at our GUI applications, we also have some container classes. And as you've been researching your checkboxes and group boxes, you might have run across these. The form itself is one big container, right? It just holds all of these other controls. And then we can have group boxes, and there are a few other types of controls that just hold other controls. Now the circle thing there is trying to show you what comes within what. So we start out saying we have a control class, like a label. For that label, we're going to instantiate an object, an instance of a label on our form, right? Now we can see it. That object is going to have properties, like the .text property that we were able to put data into, that back color property. And each of those properties have values. So we just can change the property value so that we can change the way things look, work, and feel. Now, when we start on our Windows forms, we saw yesterday, or last time, this is the time of year that I'd like to see the C# classes every day because we could really get so much done. You guys are like, okay, so anyways, we have this form here, and we've changed the text property. And that's a really important thing because as a developer, this is what people are seeing about your application, right? So if you leave it to say form 1, that's not very descriptive, that's not very helpful about your application. So make sure that really important things like that are getting taken care of and not just bypassed. Now, some Windows Forms rules that we want to follow. Just like Windows itself, we want our forms to be consistent, right? You guys know, if you are using Windows, that this big X is going to close down that window. You know that the small hyphen underline thing is going to minimize. That's a consistent way of operating, a consistent look and feel. That's why Windows has been so successful, because everything works the same way. We want to make sure our application is consistent in that same way. We want to respond to the user. Have you ever used one of those applications where it just kind of ignores you, pretends you're not there? That's not very helpful. What's HCI? Just means basically that it is compliant with all of the interfaces that are required for handicap accessibility. And so we want to make sure that if we're creating a world-class app, we've put those capabilities in so that we have more accessibility. We want to make sure everything is properly aligned. We saw those alignment tools last time that would let us align right, align left. That's important because if we look at a form that's all jaggedy and stuff's not lined up, we don't really trust it. Usually we think, oh, this is just something that I better not put my information in. We also want to make sure we avoid clutter. We want it to be nice and clean, have some white space so that it looks friendly. I think for years they've tried with Excel to make it look more friendly. To you guys it might look fine, but to people over the years it's looked really scary because it's all these numbers and just little squares of numbers. And so I think that's why they've tried to tone it down and mute it a little bit so that it wouldn't be quite so overwhelming. Be careful with color. Color is good. Color can be used to emphasize things, organize things, but make sure you don't just go crazy with it. In our class, we might mess with different colors just to try things, but we would want to be looking at some information about coordinating colors and make sure we're using everything that aligns well with each other. And then be thinking about your target audience. So just like a game or something that you were going to write, who's going to be using this application? Is it a bunch of really stuffy people at this corporate office? Then it better be a very intense, professional looking application. Is it going to be something that's going to be used in a high school by a lot of teenagers? Then it should be a little bit more relaxed of an application. So just like anything else you're working with, that audience matters. Another thing that would matter about your audience is their experience level. We can generate error messages and informational messages for people. We want to make sure that we know what that audience's level of understanding is going to be of those messages. Can we just say something like invalid product code? Or do we need to say something more specific like, this product code 1119 was not found in the product database? You know, what level are they going to be so that we can make them happy? So we have our form, and the form is made up of an instance of the form class. It's really, in this case of what we're going to look at code-wise, this object will be Windows 0. It's going to be the name of this form. And the text property is the title. So the value of our text property for this form is simple Windows application. So just think about how those things are within each other. Here's the code for that. We have Windows 0 is our class name. It's an instance of the form class. That's what that :form means. We don't get into too much about what the subclass and parent class is in this class. Too many classes, but we will in C#2. So in this example, they made a real straightforward, just a base amount of code. And they said, we can take this form, Windows 0, notice this is the constructor for this form, and we can set its text property equal to simple Windows application. In our main then, we can say that Windows 0 WinForm is an instance of a new Windows 0 form, this one, and run it. So we wouldn't be able to do that right now with our environment. Okay, so all of those things are going to happen based on that form. We talked about this last time too. Just really be thinking about it. The console is just top down. Windows forms are event driven. With the console, we had that beautiful character-based display. Our main closing curly brace halts the execution of the program. And with the console app, we call the operating system for input or output. We notice our console window just hangs, right, waiting for us to do something. With Windows Forms, besides being event-driven, it's actually sitting in a process loop, waiting for an event. So it's always active, always running, waiting for somebody to click something. When an event occurs, the operating system will notify that application, and then the event handler methods will be kicked off to process that event. Those event handlers are special methods. They're still just methods, but they're methods that indicate what we want to do when that event occurs. We looked last time at our toolbox and we saw all the controls. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because you guys just took off with it. And then we saw that the properties for our controls would allow us to update the different values. We don't need to look at this one very much. We got it. Okay, the one I want to show you. One more. Now, those event procedures that we create that kick off and run when an event occurs, there's some special code behind the scenes, that Windows generated code that's happening to make those events be associated with the item on our form. So here is a great visual of how events drive us. We have a birthday party coming up, an event, and our birthday event is wired to the birthday party process. We're going to run that birthday party. So we can think about it that way. We could have an event
that was any sort of thing. In our applications, the event is usually clicking a button or something like that and having something happen. So first, the user interacts with the form. In this example, they click the Click Me button. That issues an event. That event occurs. The operating system notifies our running form loop that an event has occurred. Our C# code that is associated with that event gets to run. It does whatever it wants to do, and then the form's appearance is updated or modified if we changed anything in that event, and then the form just redisplays. So it doesn't go away, like with our console app. But we had to put a loop in there to make it where it said, would you like to do this again? Would you like to do this again? We don't have to do that with our form because it'll continuously be displayed until they close out of it. So that's nice. Now, when we're working with event-driven processing like this, the association of that method with that event is called a delegate. We're wiring that event procedure to the event. So a delegate is really, it allows us to use one name to execute multiple methods. This could be confusing right now, but we're going to try it in just a minute, so it should make more sense. But think about this while we're talking about it here. What I'm saying is I can have a delegate, I can have one method that processes multiple controls on my form. Then I could associate all of those different controls with this one delegate function. It can be the guy in charge. Now we create a delegate, giving it a type and a signature. But here's where it matters to us when we're looking at our Windows form. Some of you guys may have run into this. Has anybody run into it yet where you're working on your form? If you delete something, then it messes up the whole thing? Well, there's this line of code in the Windows generated form, and that's our delegate connection. And that's the line we're going to have to delete if something like that happens. So the delegate is this line of code right here where it says, my form button 1's click event is a new event handler for this button. So that line of code is the delegate. It says all of these things to run this method, button 1 underscore click, when something happens with button 1. So that's the line of code we'd need to delete. So let's try it, and I'm going to skip some of this because we're not going to look at those right now. Jumping around. So I've got Visual Studio open, but I want to create a new project. Right now I have our project from last time open. Is everybody's working okay? Do you have a good sample project of your Windows form? Make sure you've checked it into TFS so that you can get to it from home. And then I'm going to close this solution and create a new one. Let's make an application today. The one that you have due is a converter for temperatures. That seems kind of like we should be able to do something along those lines that would be a good help for you. Let's do Chapter 9 seasons. When we first create our application, we want to do the work of setting up our form. Remember, all of the properties that we set on our form kind of became default for the other controls that we added to our form, like the back color and the font and things like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is change my text property. And I'll say this is going to be the season finder. And then I want to change my back color .
I'll do kind of a dark brown. But since I'm changing it to a dark brown like that, then my fore color will need to be pretty light. There's Misty Rose. And then I want to fix my font. Now my font I need to make bigger so that you guys can see it a little bit. I also don't really like, well, we'll leave their font, I guess, that's fine. You can change it, whatever you would prefer to do, because that's the good thing about forms, you get to do it kind of how you want. Let's start out here with some radio buttons. I'd like to have some radio buttons, and when radio buttons are added to our form, they're usually in a group, and usually that group of radio buttons, we can only select one. So that means that we need to somehow group these things in a container. So I'm going to look at our container controls, and I want the group box. Now when I put the group box control on my form, notice that it is exactly like it said. It's kind of like a little text box, and it's waiting to hold some other things. I can change the text property on my group box to make it be something meaningful. Let's try select season. Now once I've got my group box created, I can put some radio buttons or check boxes, whichever I like, in it. This one's going to be our radio button group because we can only pick one season. So I see my radio button control. I'm going to make sure that it drops into my group box. Now with a radio button, as well as with the checkbox, we have some additional properties. Our text property, tells us what the label is going to be for the radio button. Let's make this one be winter. But notice the text align property underneath. Let's try some changes there. Right now mine's set to middle left. Oh, look at it. It's kind of like a clicky grid. So try some changes here. Didn't really do much different. We'll try that control on a different item that has more impact. Didn't do much for us at all. The ones I really wanted to show you, though, are when we're looking at a checkbox or a radio button, we can change where the text is, or check align it. There it goes. That was the one I wanted. So try those under check align, and you can change how things are situated, make it a big mess. But you might want your text to show up under your radio button or something like that. So we can switch the position of the text and the radio button. Now the important property for us when we're looking at a checkbox is this checked property. Right now my checked property is false on this winter radio button. That means it's not clicked on. Okay, let's add some others. I want to name this one though. Whoops, sorry. I'm going to go back up to the top and name it RAD Winter. I almost forgot. Remember, anytime you're working with the form, you can try different appearance options. I'm going to grab another radio button, drag it into my group box. This one will be spring. So I'll name it RAD Spring. And its text property will say spring. RAD for radio button.
And same thing for winter?
Yep, RAD Winter.
Now we need a couple more. We could copy and paste. We didn't do much changing of properties on our radio button, but sometimes we make a lot of property changes and it would be good to be able to copy and paste. Let's copy. Now, when we copy and paste a radio button control, we have to be careful and make sure the paste gets into the group box. Now, that was my spring, so I want to make it summer. And I'll name it RAD Summer. And then I need fall. And I'll put my text property to be fall. Now, if I select all my radio buttons, I can just use that rubber band selection to select them all. And I can use the alignment toolbar to make sure things are pretty even. So I want to align on the left. I want to make them all the same height. And then I'd like to make my spacing equal, my vertical spacing, because my fall was a little bit further away from the others.
How do you get to alignment?
Make sure you have more than one thing selected. So just like any other Windows things, click and then press Control. Does it show up?
Yeah.
So as long as you have more than one thing selected. So you can do Control click, or you can use the rubber band selection to grab multiple items. Now, another thing we could do is we could copy all of these items at the same time and paste them. So when we're doing that selection, so when someone picks what season it is, let's display something in a label. So I'm going to grab a label control and put it down here under our season selection. And remember, the label is just going to auto size. So no matter how big you try to make it, it won't care. And this label I'm going to refer to in our code, so I want to make sure it has a good name. It'll be LBL season. Now if I leave my text property as label 1, it'll come up saying that label 1, and that doesn't look very good. So let's make our text property say something else, like welcome to the season finder. And then it'll just display that when it first comes up. Bless you. My group box 4 color text is not right. It's bothering me. I don't know if it'll let me fix it. Oh, yep. Maybe Microsoft will fix those bugs someday where you have to redo those colors. All right, so our plan is if somebody clicks one of our season radio buttons, we're going to display a message down here about which one they clicked. So let's run this first and make sure it looks good. Notice that Windows or .NET went ahead and clicked the winter option for us. Make sure that any option you check deselects all the others. If everything is working properly, then all of those radio button controls got into your group box properly. If they're not working, like you can have 2 things checked, one of them is not in the group box. So it's not being part of the group. Everybody's okay? Look good? Let's go then. I want to fix our label. Well, there's a couple of things we could do. When we're working with a radio button, we can use the event when somebody clicks on the radio button.
Let's try that. I'm going to double click on my winter radio button. Come on. Visual Studio has to do like 30 seconds of setup before it'll let me zoom in. Okay. So this looks a lot like that, bless you, code we were looking at before. Remember our Form 1, when we're working on the code, we're going to be working in this partial class area of Form 1. The constructor calls the initialize components method, and all of the other methods in our code are going to probably be event procedures. But we could put regular methods in here too if we wanted to. Okay, so in this one, we're saying that this is for our winter radio button. So let's set our label, text property equal to we'll just say something like winter winds. We just want some sort of message so that we know that we're getting to the right place. Now I'm going to run this. If I click fall, whoops, that was weird. Look at that. It says winter winds already. Remember that .NET decided that winter was going to be our default. So it executed that code before we even saw the form. Yes, sir?
For some reason, spring is my default.
Let's check your form. I don't know if it's just randomly picking. It seems actually like a radio button bug.
And whenever I open it up, it's automatically on spring.
How's everybody else's?
My thing is the one they run it.
It won't let you run it?
Because I double clicked it before we renamed it.
Oh, okay, let's fix that problem then.
Also, I can't seem to change my font color.
We'll fix all these. First problem, we have a control that we accidentally double click on and we get that code, right? So let's say that that happens to us. I'm going to create a dummy button here just so I can show you what to do. So this is just button 1. I'm going to double click on it and my code gets created. Because you guys are all such awesome programmers, you're all like, I can't have this in here. Seriously, you wouldn't believe how many years nobody's cared, but you guys are just like, no, we can't have that, which is great. So I want to get rid of it. I decided I don't need that button. It was a mistake. I accidentally got it out there and I accidentally double clicked on it. Now, when I delete this event procedure from my code and I go back to edit my form is destroyed. I can't get to it. So it's a really important thing to remember, because if you just spent 2 hours on that form, it could be really sad. So we can take care of this problem really easy. All we have to do is get rid of that delegate line of code that associated this event procedure with that button. So I'm going to click Go to Code, which is so nice because it didn't used to give you that option. And then I'm going to delete that line out of my button 1 information stuff that says the event handler for this is button 1 _ click. So I delete that delegate association, should see the error go away. And now when I go back to Form 1, design mode, everything should be fine. So don't think you have to start over. If something weird like that happens, just take a look at that code that it's confused about and get rid of that delegate line. Yes, sir? Sometimes it's your text box or something that you want to keep. This one is one that I can delete because I was just showing you. But if you already had a bunch of properties set and things, you just want to fix it. So, but you could do that. You could delete that control. But how would you delete that control when you can't display your form? You could delete all of the button. That would delete that control. So you are on it. All right, so now I've got it set. I'm not sure I like the way it's doing it, where it's running this winter thing before I even get started.
So let's put in something for spring. I'm going to double click on it. And for spring, we'll just say spring showers. Now, if we run, we should at least be able to check back and forth on our spring and winter and see that label message changing. Now, it's not going to change if we choose summer or fall because we haven't associated any code with those events. But I'm noticing that, you know, I could do this all in one event, right? Is it right? Looks like it's always right. Let's add our summer in. Everything is working great. Now, it just seems like it's working too good. Let's mess it up. What we want to do is I want to create one event procedure that we use for all of these season radio buttons. Because I'm just feeling like, look at all these events. Plus, I want you to know how to do it. So I'm going to copy my RAD summer event procedure or method. And instead of having it say RAD summer, I'm going to make it be RAD season. And then in our RAD season method, we're going to do an if statement. If RAD fall is checked, we haven't done that yet. We'll set our label. All leaves, that's really entertaining, isn't it? Now, else if RAD spring is checked, we can set our label. Now, as we do this, be thinking about the benefits and drawbacks of each way. Because we could do it either way. What did we say about winter? Winterings. Now, after my if statement, I'm going to make sure that I don't revise that label again because I've done it within my if statement. Because I didn't do curly braces through my if statement, I'm going to get rid of these ones that the IDE put in for me. If that's annoying you and you want curly braces, great job. Put them in. So I want to associate this event procedure with our winter, or no, I'm sorry, fall that doesn't have an event procedure yet. So let's go back to our form. When I click on our fall radio button, if you remember here in your properties window, said this icon up here with the wrench makes it show the properties. But if you click on the lightning bolt, that'll show the event association. We want to associate this new event we just wrote with our checked change event. And notice that's the one it came up with because that's the primary event or most common event we would use for a radio button. And now that drop down should show us
some methods because we've written some. So I want to choose RAD season, our new method. Now let's run. And I can try all of the different ones. And our fall should work now. It didn't?
No.
Let's fix it. Can you go ahead and take control here? Let me give it to you. Okay.
What was selected to see whether or not the something changed?
Check changed.
Where did you have the form selected or like the label?
The radio button.
Which,
Let's put him there. So go back, Edward, to your form for us.
Okay.
And click on your fall radio button. Now go to the events, look at the lightning bolt down in your properties. And right there where it says checked changed, do that drop down and choose our new RAD season. Now try it again and see if it works. Oops. Let's check your RAD season. It's got some red spots. Can you tell what those are?
Yeah.
You got it. Oh, right there after spring showers, put in another line and do else if. RAD summer checked. And then indent your LBL season line. Move it into your curly braces. That's great.
Okay.
Good. Oh, looks good.
Thank you.
Is everybody else okay? I think they needed that. Good job. So let's just make all of our buttons or radio buttons use that same event procedure because we don't really need all these different event procedures. What happens is when we have these radio button event procedures, oftentimes we keep needing to add more code depending on which one was chosen. And so if we have a bunch of different procedures, we have to update a bunch of different procedures every time something like that happens. If we keep it all in one method, one event procedure, then we only have one place to update for all our radio buttons. So I want to make that change for all three, winter, spring, and summer. I'm going to select all three of those radio buttons. In my properties window, I'm going to make sure that I'm looking at the events. And I want my checked changed event, and I'm going to change it. Notice it's not showing one because those three radio buttons all use a different event, so it can't show us when we have them all selected. But we can still change it to make them all use the same one. So now everything should be using our new RAD season method. Let's run that, make sure everything's still working. Looks good. So I'm going to go in and delete those other event procedures that we don't need. I don't need RAD summer or RAD spring or RAD winter. So as you delete those, make sure you don't get curly braces messed up. Now, for the way we were doing it, each of those event procedures was really, really simple. So it's totally fine to have a bunch of different ones. Just wanted to show you how you could also use one. So that looks good.
looking at our form then, should we add some check boxes? Let's add another group box. And we're going to make this group box. Where is my stuff to enter things? Look, I'm stuck here. I've got this group box, but I don't have my things down here. Yes, sir?
Well, also my toolbox that's up here.
Your toolbox over here?
Uh-huh.
Are you looking at your form?
Oh, okay.
Make sure you're looking at your form. Now, when you're looking at your form and you're looking over here at your properties, why am I not seeing properties? I'm seeing all these other things. Where are my properties? Did you find yours? You're not going to tell me where mine are?
Are you? Well, you're in the events.
I'm looking at events, so I need to go to properties. You won't believe how many emails I get about that. I have this other class that just always thinks that I'm like really dumb when I'm asking these stupid questions. That's fine. Okay, so what do we want to name this thing? Well, what are we going to put in it? I was thinking, since we're just kind of practicing here, what if we put check boxes in here for things that they should take? Like maybe we want to take an umbrella or something like that. Snowshoes, skis, boat. Let's see what we got. So let's change our text then to be, you will need. And I'm going to fix my for color, change it back so that it listens to me. I don't really need to name this group box unless I'm going to refer to it in my code. But I think I might, because we might need different things. So let's go ahead and name it just in case. ERP needs. Now, just like our radio buttons, we want to make sure our checkboxes all get inside of our group box. So find your checkbox control, drag it into your group box. Now, just like, again, our radio buttons, our checkboxes will allow you to customize where the little square is as compared to the text. I'm going to rename my checkbox, CHK need 1. Hopefully we can come up with a better name. That's where I'm right now. Now I want to change my property text to say umbrella. So I guess it would be better to name our control CHK umbrella. Need 1 is kind of an awful name. What else might we need? You might need, I guess, snow boots. I'll go down to the text. And I'll make this be named CHK snow boots. Let's do the important stuff that we're going to need, maybe. I'll say this one is going to be a bathing suit. CHK bathing suit. Going on that same philosophy, I'll paste another one. And we'll make this one be sunblock. I can't even say it. Get a couple of things for summer here.
That looks pretty good. So what I'm thinking is we're going to let the user check these check boxes. I need to check my alignment again. Do that. Select them all. Use my alignment toolbar to make my horizontal spacing equal. Oops, that's not the one. How about vertical? That would probably be better. So we'll let them check these boxes here, but maybe we could go ahead and check some depending on what season they say it is. So I want to run my form first to make sure that everything looks okay. Looks great. So whenever we display our label here, it would be kind of nice if we could say something about the items that they'll need. So let's try it with our winter. I'm going to go look at our code. And here where we say in our else, where we're at winter, I'm going to add curly braces because I want to do some more things. And I want to say that our snow boots should be checked. For summer, I'll go ahead and put in some curly braces. And after saying summer fun, let's say that our bathing suit is going to be checked and our sunscreen. Spring is when we'd probably need an umbrella. So I'll add some curly braces to our spring and set our umbrella. Not doing anything for fall. What do we need in fall? Nothing. It's all good. A rake. A rake would be good. I like to buy into these new theories of you should leave your leaves. Yeah, for the grass and all the, butterflies and stuff. The flowers sure were glad. Okay, let's see what kind of mess we created here. This would be a good one. So if I click, right now my winter is checked, so my snow boots option is already checked. I'm going to try summer. Oh, I've got snow boots and a bathing suit. I guess I could uncheck the snow boots. Fall doesn't do anything. What about spring? Spring, I've got now my umbrella, bathing suit, and sunblock. So it's like, gosh, we need some way to reset all these check boxes and things because it's just not correct. So let's add a reset button. So on our form, I'm going to find a button control. I'll put our button down here at the bottom. We'll name this button BTN Reset.
I'll make its text property say reset. And then I'll fix that back color problem. I'll just leave it chocolate, it looks better. Now in our reset button, we want to clear everything out. So let's double click that button to create our event procedure. It's going to create the event procedure and wire it with that delegate in that Windows generated code. So if they click the reset button, I think that I want to set all of our radio buttons, text properties to false. And then our checkboxes. Since these are all a collection, would we be able to do like a for each loop or something here instead of having to name them all?
Probably.
Let's try it. Let's try it. Now I want to run this and make sure everything is good, and then we'll try putting it in a for each loop since we have that group box. Now I've got a bunch checked, so I'm going to click the reset button. And I end up with everything cleared out, but yet mine is still acting like winter winds is selected. I'll get online and see if I can find out what kind of bug problem that is about, so don't worry about that right now. It shouldn't be acting that way. But let's try clearing all of those boxes out in a for each loop. So if I say for each var, which means anything in C#, for each var checkbox in, we called it GRP needs. We got no enumerator there, so it won't let us. Let's see if we've got any list. Since our items are not really a list component in our checkbox, it's not going to let us do that, but it's always worth a try to see if you can. We would be able to loop through all of the controls on our form and find those, check to see if the control was a group box and set it to false. So try to keep thinking that way. Is there a way to process these things all at once? Sometimes there's not, sometimes there will be, and I'm sure there is with the checkboxes. I just don't want to veer off too much on us right now.
Is this a C#? Shouldn't you comment using forward slashes?
What? Oh, thank you, sir. I'm Pythoning, aren't I? Yep, that happens. Thank you. I was like, I wonder why it's so mad at me there. Okay, so we see now we can do some really great things with all of our different radio buttons and group boxes, but we have to be careful because once something gets checked, we have to uncheck it if we're going to make sure that things are always accurate. You definitely can behave differently. So for our assignment, you're supposed to be converting something. Let's put something on our form. And I'm going to say that the umbrella is going to have a cost associated with it. So let's look at our checkbox here. And I want to just change the text property. I'm going to make it say umbrella, or I'll make the money first. $10 for an umbrella. Let's say it's $50 for snow boots. $75 for a bathing suit. This is like the Price is Right here. And let's say it's $5 for sunblock. I would like to have something for fall, but we'll just leave it out. And then we'll have examples that are a little different. I want an OK button or a process button that's going to calculate the cost. That's what I'm thinking, based on the current checkboxes. So I'm going to copy my reset button and paste. I'm going to change its text property to say OK. And I'm going to name it BTN OK. So let's double click our OK button and see if we can process all of this. In our OK button, we can check to see what's checked. Let's create a variable. We could make it a double, and this will be our total cost. And I'll start with it equal to 0. Then if my snow boots is checked, I'll have to keep going back. We said those were 50. We'll add 50. Now, could I do an else if here? Or do I need a separate if? That is correct. Why?
Because both of them may or may not be checked.
Exactly.
It would only continue if one wasn't.
We could do the elif with our radio buttons because only one of them can be checked. But with our group boxes, we have to have the separate if. Good job. Now for our bathing suit, I want to add to our total cost. What did I say? Thank you. Now after our bathing suit, we add sunblock. I can remember that one. We said it was 5, right? And then our umbrella. So that's good, but I'm thinking that it might need a little bit more information based on which items are checked. Maybe we want to update our message a little bit. So let's create, in addition to our total cost, let's create a string that is our message. So this is why you should always use the opening and closing curly braces from the very beginning, huh? Now, if my snow boots is checked, I think I want to add to that message. Snow boots in a space. And then for each of the others, we'll do that same thing. And we'll add them to our message so that in the end, our message has all of the different things that they need to bring.
And finally, my umbrella. So now that we've got all of that information processed, let's build our final output label. So far, what's our label going to say? If we look at it right now, it should say something about what season we picked. So let's use that and just add to it. So instead of saying equal, I'm going to do plus equal. And so far, it's going to say something like winter winds. So I'm going to make it add a little bit more information. So besides that, let's say you might need and then we'll add our message. That's going to be all of those different things. And then let's add a little bit more. We'll put a closing period and say your cost will be, and I'll just use that number parameter thing and say that that's going to be our total cost. Doesn't like me doing that. Should do that with the console, huh? So could I do string? You could. That's one thing you could do. But I wanted to show you this other thing that you can do. You could also use the string class and the format function, and that will allow you to do that same console type formatting that you're used to doing. So remember that one's out there. But yes, you could do that, the $ too. Now I'd like this to format as currency. So I'll put that in. Now let's see what kind of mess we have now. I could actually just click OK right now because I have winter and my snow boots checked. Try it. Winter winds, you might need snow boots. Your cost will be $50. That looks pretty good. What happens if I click my reset button? Goes back to winter winds, which is that bug. I'm going to try a different one. Summer has 2 things. So when I click OK, I should get a little bit of a different message. How's it working? Everybody okay? Does it work good?
Could you, because it says bathing suit sunblock, the one right after the other, could you add and or something like that? Like if you have multiple things for one season, that way you can, that way it's not as confusing.
Yeah, it would look a lot better. Yeah, it would definitely look a lot better. So you could do that. Yep. Sure.
I would at least add commas.
Yeah, commas would be nice. So how are you going to tell if it's not the first one? You guys have to think about that troubleshooting logic. How are you going to be able to tell? That's why we're not going to do that right now, because you need lab time. Now, that should be enough for you to be able to complete both of your assignments. If you run into something that is confusing for you or that you don't remember us talking about, because we have covered a lot of things, just let me know. Again, use the Slack channel. Help each other get out there. Start making sure that people know who you are and that they know you know your stuff because you answer questions for them. So that'll be important. All right, I'm going to end this thing. And it is on to you.